What are you most excited about over the next 20 years? What do you think will be the major transformations? How will Facebook transform? How do you think the rest of the world will transform?
So we have this 10-year roadmap
Yeah, it was great.
three of the big changes that we want to see in the world.
The prisoners held in Plato's cave were kept docile and without complaint by the shadows they coveted. Though they consented to the cold, dark walls which held them, believing them all that existed. This was the limit of the matter. If this were so for us, we might breathe a sigh of relief. Sadly, that luxury must be denied. You see, our cave has a voice. It has seduced us, and we dare not contradict it.
I just wanna feel alive in the starlight. I see in your eye. I just wanna feel alive in the starlight. I see in your eyes.
And we're focused on three things. Connectivity, right? So getting everyone in the world on the internet. Right now, more than half the world is not on the internet.
The rise of social media is by now a well-worn story. Its early iterations are largely defunct. Whether one considers the first social media website, 6degrees.com, launched in 1997, its first popular example, the Malaysian website Friendster, which went offline in 2015, or even MySpace, which at one point seemed as if it may attain lasting dominance. Today, but a handful of social media monopolies matter. More than this, they are dominated by a single company: Facebook. Famously founded by its reigning CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, and his college roommates in 2004, its dominance is now a simple statistical reality. In late 2018, the website had 2.37 billion monthly active users, around 31.4% of the world's population. Roughly 1 in 5 people worldwide used Facebook daily over the same period. However vast these statistics are, they still do not account for Facebook's full scale. The company owning many other major online platforms, notably Instagram and WhatsApp.
I think most Americans would love to say, oh, I don't really need social media, but that's like saying I don't really need my iPhone. I think that, or I don't really need email.
Well, you can get a Samsung.
Technically, you can, well, exactly, there is competition. You can go to Samsung. With Facebook, there's really nowhere else to go. Facebook has 85% of the revenue in the social networking sector. Are you going to go to LinkedIn?
Though much mythologized, with even a feature film for the purpose, Facebook's meteoric rise is the result of a reasonably simple combination of factors. The company adopted Google's predatory approach to data relatively early in its development. The like button, introduced in 2010, provided an easy way with which to do so. By embedding the button across websites, Facebook tracked users across the internet. To do this, it adopted the same aggressive strategies as Google, habituating its products and its self-declared right to our lives. It was equally aided by smartphone adoption, which surged from 2010. This was particularly important for gathering data on the oppressed world, where computer ownership is less practical or available. It is worth noting that Google and Facebook's monopolies are both, ultimately, the result of capitalism's tendency toward concentration. those capitalists who compete successfully securing dominance over the market. Now grown to this scale, the specifics of their rule dictate that both of these tech giants must now gather data on us at an ever-increasing rate. That social media stands as the clearest expression that socio-ludic culture is becoming dominant is no accident. In its very nature, it is a blending of the two principal features of this medium, each platform forming a connected and playful or gamified space for mass cultural practice. Whilst it is obvious that social media spaces are connected, it is perhaps less clear that it is gamified and thus engages us in the aesthetic relation of play. The manner in which we interact with social media websites is designed, mechanically, to shape our output in these spaces. For example, Instagram allows a specific size and frame for photographs, shaping how users take them. Twitter allows only 280 characters in an individual user post, forcing adaptations in writing style. These spaces are also designed with the cycle of frustration and reward seen in many systems of video game progression in mind, with irritation being a feature of design, not a bug. They wield immense power to shape our actions in the social sphere, as is illustrated by the phenomenon of video game and social media addiction.
My son has recorded and counted how many times I post. And I've been up to sometimes 50, 60 posts a day in my prime, which is very easy for me to do. I mean,
sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, I roll over, my husband's not there, he must have woken up, had a thought about Facebook, snuck out of bed, and he's sitting on the computer.
The next one is AI. I think that that's just gonna unlock so much potential in so many different domains. And we use it at Facebook for a lot of different things, for showing people content that they're going to find more meaningful, for making sure that you connect with the people you actually care about on the service.
That social media platforms consist of mechanics, and that this shapes our interaction with them, is not enough to say that they elicit the aesthetic relation of play. For this relationship to form fully, it is also required that we, as an audience, engage in roleplay. To understand this, we must return to our understanding of data and the image of us produced by it. Just as Google uses this image to determine what we see in our searches, social media platforms use it in the construction of the social spaces they offer us. For example, Facebook's AI now shows us posts on our news feed in an order selected for us. As such, our interactions with these social spaces are necessarily modified by how they respond to our data, as this changes the things that we see, in what order, and even in what context, digital or physical. As these spaces are designed to secure revenue, the image of us produced by them and used to elicit these changes are those which are useful to this goal. The world that social media constructs for us is therefore that which best emphasises our vulnerabilities and compulsions. We are thus asked to roleplay as a specific, unreal version of ourselves. Our Facebook or Twitter me. Whilst we have established that the form of our interaction with social media is that of play, it is necessary to say that the contours of this play are specific and limited. Despite their differences, the social media platforms available to us all aspire to create a simulation of a certain type of social environment. For example, Twitter attempts to emulate an environment for news and politics. Instagram attempts to create a fashion and graphic design based community. Their mechanical differences orientate their individual purpose. Where they are similar, however, essential features of the medium reveal themselves. Newsfeed, first introduced by Facebook, in 2006, then adopted across most social media platforms, is perhaps the most important example of this. The feature is essentially a never-ending scroll, the total flow of social media. As we have said, this flow is now customized to the individual user by artificial intelligence. The last major platform to withstand this practice, Twitter, adopting it as an optional, soon mandatory feature in 2019. This has considerable implications for our conception of time. In the total flow of an emulated social environment, that is, the simulacrum of social life offered to us by social media, no single comment, photo, or like possesses a referent to any particular historical moment. Instead, they are positioned by a logic concerned exclusively with capitalist interests. Consequently, as our lives are ever more consumed by social media, time and continuity are left as a casualty. The lives of our friends, our families, and our loved ones, the ebb and flow of popular culture, the yawning abyss of contemporary politics. Each of these exists only in a perpetual now, which appears to be set in motion by the stroke of our thumbs. Once these moments are expended, or should we miss them, they do not exist to us.
This is fine.
Just as video did, this newly dominant medium has come to shape older cultural forms. This is so obvious with regard to capitalist cultural production that a brand can express it: Netflix. However, what is more interesting is the manner in which we ourselves construct cultural products through social media. The advent of the smartphone represents an important moment for our ability to produce images. When we begin to turn these images towards social media, we modify them to suit this environment. A common example: we screenshot sections of articles we find useful. The broader span of the written text that we have selected these excerpts from is disrupted, and a fragment of its span thrown into quite a new text: the total flow of social media. Not only does the old world bow to this new cultural logic, but it has produced its own artistic form: the meme.
Two shots of vodka.
Memes can and should be anything. They are a form without formal structure, intended to suit any thought or image. There are, however, clear tendencies. The raw material of meme construction is simply cultural detritus, the cuttings that fall from our cameras, screens, and keyboards, or small excerpts of popular culture snipped out and taken as a canvas. That they are self-referential, the most intricate examples of the form, built on sequences of in-jokes, is a reflection of social media's intent to enclose us in an environment which quote-unquote mirrors us. Memes spread through the consensus found in networks, from people to groups and pages. In essence, they are a popular art, built on the self-selected debris of the data dispossession that underpins the entirety of our digital lives, written in the accent of the environment constructed for us by this dispossession. A people's pastiche, written in an oppressor's tongue.
Back out here live, we will have much more from the tiny community of Rachel, Nevada at 6:30. Reporting live, Joe Bartels, 13 Action News.
It is worth lingering a moment on an inherent political consequence of these new cultural premises. As we have seen, the simulacrum of social life rendered for us on social media is intended to make us suggestible by design. One of the methods by which it does so is by prompting us to think in a heuristic manner. This essentially describes a manner of thinking which makes use of logical shortcuts. To navigate the total flow of social media, it is necessary that one adopts this stance, at least on occasion, assuming, for instance, that the source shared by a friend or a trusted news outlet is both correct and proves their point. If we do not use such shortcuts, the amount of information presented to us by this total flow becomes all but impossible to interpret. We are thus primed for propaganda.
Criminals, gluttons of greed, and the evil genius who towered over them, one man has the guts to speak his name.
Big Bird. Big Bird. Big Bird.
It's me, Big Bird.
Big, yellow, a menace to our economy.
The 2016 Cambridge Analytica scandal brought a considerable consequence of this reality into the limelight. The company had applied information warfare techniques it had developed in India, Kenya, and Malta to the Brexit referendum and the US presidential race of the same year.
Kenyatta campaign, which we ran in 2013 and 2017. We have rebranded the entire party twice, written their manifesto, done 2 rounds of 50,000 surveys.
Huge amounts of research, analysis, messaging.
And then we'd write all the speeches and we'd stage the whole thing.
It illicitly scraped Facebook data from countless users and targeted those who its AI viewed as swayable, with an avalanche of unmarked propaganda. Meme warfare. Evidently, this was effective. It demonstrated the sheer power of socio-ludic media, showing plainly that the manipulation of bourgeois politics has been distilled to a science. It was not, however, unique. The first use of these techniques on even the US population is far earlier, with Google applying them for the Obama campaign in both 2008 and 2012. The significance of these observations for our understanding of socio-ludic culture, particularly social media, is marked. The capitalists, organised through the technology sector, hold an unprecedented cultural power. What they have been able to produce is not only an ideological map, but the tools by which to shape its terrain. However, at the same time that this new organ of power has been unlocked, the class which wields it has fallen into ideological chaos. Its so-called global society revealing itself as a struggle between empires for dominance. This explains, in part, the significance ascribed to Cambridge Analytica's actions in the bourgeois press, in comparison to the relative silence surrounding Google's work with Obama. In 2008 and 2012, the transatlantic ruling class were relatively united. In 2016, they had fallen into factionalism and nationalism, and the strategies of those factions who had been hegemonic failed. The most dangerous ideological weapon ever produced by the imperialist bourgeoisie was unveiled at the same moment that their ideological unity fell apart. Certainty was replaced by contest. Whilst what is outlined here is but an overview, it provides a basis from which to illustrate the fundamental significance of social media's development. In a cultural sense, the phenomenon has seen a considerable expansion of the cultural logic of postmodernity. The total flow, first seen in television, has now transformed into a distorted one-way mirror and spread to every element of our social lives. Pastiche has been transformed into a popular art form. Continuity risks an early grave. In brief, through social media, the image of us constructed by data is today collapsing into social reality. The simulacrum of social life it has created is merging with social life proper, the two becoming indistinguishable. That we can today observe this is not insignificant. However, we have borne witness to but the birth pangs of this process. Already, Silicon Valley have their eyes on the next phase, which is intended to bring forth the baby. Mixed reality. This describes a social media environment projected onto the real world by a VR headset. That is, an image world attaining dominance over the real world. Having acquired the Oculus headset in 2014, Facebook is taking the first steps to bringing this new world about. This year, it announced that Facebook Horizon, the first major VR social media platform, will launch in 2020. Around the same time, it intends to mint its own currency, Libra. And so our circumstance is becoming untenable. We are still content in our cave, even as the entrance is being sealed shut.
Today, we want to announce an experience that we've been working on called Horizon. And in Horizon, you are going to be able to build your own worlds and experiences. You're going to be able to play games, you're going to be able to explore, you're going to be able to hang out with your friends, and of course meet new people.
20 years ago, most of us were using desktop computers. They were kind of clunky. We used them in work because it made our work more productive, but most people didn't use them for fun. Now we have phones which help us connect with each other, and they're much more human devices. But there's going to be another platform after that. And I think that's going to be virtual reality and augmented reality.